channel. Inaugural. Okay. And we are live. Yeah, there we go. You reading the chat, Shway?
Yeah.
We're just waiting for the numbers to fill up a little bit before we start going.
Look, Silch wasn't following you before, dude.
Can you believe this guy? Can you believe this guy?
Pretty messed up.
We founded something together. He wasn't even following me. And yeah, I'm a basic white girl. I got Starbucks before this. Yeah. I'll give it 2 more minutes and we'll just start with the introductions.
Oh, will you look at that? See, not a first time message. For sale.
Can't believe so.
It's alright, so I'll just do this.
Got the man bun.
Nah,
Quite jealous.
Can we talk?
We have to just sit here awkwardly, boys.
Just tell him we can't talk about football because he'll get heated again because his team lost.
His team has been struggling.
What team are we talking about?
The Eagles, I believe.
Oh, shoot. I mean, they're
Man,
fine.
that's some
Though.
American
They're
stuff.
playoffs, so it doesn't matter.
Okay, 7:05. We'll start with the introductions. Everybody who's in here already knows, but I'm Adrian / Cyril from PaxModes. And we can start with Vexan, just a quick introduction.
Hello guys, my name is Vection. I'm from rhyming department, PV organization. Let's see how this will go today.
Go ahead, 7.
I'm 7. I'm from Liberty's Reapers. Yeah.
Cobra.
I'm Cobra 257 from Shadow Moses.
And I'm Schwang from Avenger Squadron.
Uppies.
Yeah. That's me.
Awesome. So everybody up here has extensive knowledge regarding the current flight model, the future MasterModes. Everybody in here has dabbled in it. If not, me myself, I've spent quite a bit of time recently. So we're gonna be talking about MasterModes and hopefully things it's done right, the things it could that it could work on and such. So, starting with the first question, how do you feel about CIG actually implementing and giving us a chance to actually test master modes for once, unlike previously where they would just throw it at us and request that they're requesting feedback regarding it?
I would like to see more feedback probably implemented, but it's interesting to be able to play the two modes in tandem to see where we are currently in live and where we have been for the last few years to what they're trying to produce for us. It's hard to say if it's a good idea, but it is nice to be able to see the two side by side and compare them to see exactly what we like from live and see what I would say possibly like from master modes, because there's a lot still to be desired in it.
Cobra?
I'm glad that they've shown it. If they would have just given what we have now with all the ships, it would have been complete chaos. It would be nice if they had a more structured way of accepting the feedback and stating like what they intend to do, because a bunch of people are saying a bunch of different things, but like you never know what they're listening to and what they're not to. And I don't think that they have like a solid system for having like good players actually trying to take the fight model to the max. So that they don't really know what they've made until they get into the hands of people that play the game a lot. Because you hear the feedback from some of the devs sometimes, and they're like, "Oh, we're getting these very positional fights," and then once people like us get in there, all you can do is just sit there and shoot at each other. There's nothing else you can really do.
And I completely agree with both of those takes, which is why I think it's extremely important for them to listen to players like us. But I'll let Schwein keep going before we go.
All right. Well, I think it's great that they did it. Like we were asking for it for a long time. We were saying like, hey, just put like a experimental master modes in there. We were asking for that. So I'm really happy they did it because yeah, just like someone said, like imagine if this came out and they had done all the ships and stuff like that, it would be mayhem, right? So at least we get a chance to give feedback early, and it also puts pressure on them a little bit. It puts pressure on them to improve it and change it because it's there and it exists, and they have to do stuff with it. So
Yeah, and Vekshan.
Well, I quite am happy that I got to test it out. I didn't get to test out the older versions that were similar to this, from what I understand. But I hope that they will take the feedback as much as possible from all the sides, even from the lower skill player base to the highest end. So everybody has to like kind of find a middle ground where you can have a certain high skill cap and uh, a low point of entry with let's say with a high ceiling.
Yeah. So, yeah, I I I kind of agree with everyone. I think Cobra brought up a good point. Is I love the fact that we're testing it. I wish there was a way where we could kind of know which feedback they're taking from everything that's been put out, because the community has been providing feedback, and not just the PvP community, the other communities, like even the racing. So I wish we had more of a clear vision where they're heading to. But yeah, I think overall it's a good thing.
I think on the side of feedback and being responsive with feedback, it comes down to we had the last iteration of like master modes, which they admitted at SitCon was already far behind what they had in house. So then at that point, what's the point of us playing it? Because if they've already made iterations in house and this is way an old build, what's the point of us even trying? So when we went from that one to the current version that we have now, we need to know every single thing that was changed because they're changing so many systems at the same time. It's hard to give, accurate and good feedback when you don't know everything that's changed. Does it feel good like this because something didn't get, like, say projectile velocity just as a throwing out there, I don't think it was even changed. Say all of a sudden it feels like we're hitting more shots here, even though before we may not have. Was it because they raised projectile velocity? Was it a change in accelerations? Was it what led to us getting to this conclusion? Why is so many things being changed at one time compared to, iterating one thing? Okay, let's mess around with accelerations or ramping or what have you. See how that feels. If the ships feel like shit, then why are we? Then of course the shots are going to hit because they're not moving that much. But like we need to know everything that was changed to give accurate and clear feedback so we can hone in and focus on those things that they're trying to get us to test.
Yeah, and yeah, I think for me personally, you hit kind of the nail on the head. Regarding knowing it, we need to know exactly what they're changing and why. Um, yeah, so let's kind of move on to I want to touch on a subject. And this is more for the general Star Citizen audience regarding master modes. I feel like there's an impression that from the general Star Citizen community that the 1% of players, which I consider all of us here to be very much a part of, that we want some super hardcore, sweaty, inaccessible game. And I kind of want to touch up on how that's not true at all. We want more players to be encouraged to join PvP and fight, and to have fun. And I think the PvP community is very supportive of that. So at least I know all of us up here are supportive of that. So I just want to start. Maybe Schwang can speak on how we want what's best for the game and what's fun, not just the 1%.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, so you bring up a good point. Like, so my brother, I have a younger brother who I've been introducing to the game recently, and he was playing the live model, and I was trying to teach him, and we were like 2 or 3 days in. He'd played maybe a total, or longer than that, but he played like a total of like 9 hours, and he was still struggling with the. I mean, it takes a very long time to master throttle control in the game, so he was still struggling to even get close to an opponent to shoot them. You know what I mean? And so it just feels um, like I understand why they want to make that easier for people, because it made it almost impossible for me to get him involved in the game, and then overall, like the way it is right now, speeds will always dictate which ships are the ones that are used. Like, so anything smaller than or larger than a light fighter, because it's slower, just isn't ever used in real combat at like the top levels, because it's just too slow to actually be effective or to shoot anything. So I'm very much looking forward to like a more dynamic fights where there's all sorts of different types of ships and stuff like that, and you have to be wary of getting too close to the gunship, or you have to, you want to focus the bombers or whatever. Just whatever they do with this, it's already more interesting than the live model for everyone that's not the very top players.
Yeah. Vekshan, you want to add to that?
Yeah, compared to other games, it's that we play more hardcore ourselves. It's very much so not required, but it's mandatory for this game to have a low bar of entry, because at the end of the day, the game is not going to be us. We are going to be just the cream of the game. The meat of the game is going to be a lot of players that are just going to come home, play the game, have fun, and that's about it. They're going to have a battle or two, and they don't want to be stressed. Or if they want to stress, they at least have the opportunity to reach a higher point, way higher.
Yeah. Definitely. And 7.
I think a low bar, you want to make it so it's easily accessible. And doing that will get more people involved. But at the same time, you still want to reward those that put in the amount of time. Because if your time doesn't feel respected and it doesn't feel like you're getting anywhere in a game, are you going to continue to play it? Does that hurt the longevity of the game? Because at that point, is it really that much fun if somebody who picks up the game tomorrow kicks your ass like it's nothing because you've been playing for years and trying to work on getting better, but there's nothing nuanced that you need to learn in order to achieve a higher level of skill. And I think that in some ways it's watered down too much in master modes. I like the general idea. I do. Slower speeds, right now higher projectile velocities, and the new aiming system is awesome. But there's too much happening, I think. And then the egg shape still feels awkward. The accelerations forcing you into the wall too fast makes the ships feel bad. Uh, it's all that kind of stuff that ultimately, is it fun to play? And right now I'm leaning on the less fun than I had even on the first iteration, because the first iteration felt more fun than this one.
Do you,
But again, so much has changed from the last one that I can't really do an apples to apples now. It's an apples to oranges.
yeah. Do you think some of the fun? So, because I didn't and just to interject here, I didn't play the first iteration too much, but when I did, it was kind of fun. But the reason that I found it funner than the current one is because there was no pips. You think?
The no pips was interesting.
Yeah.
It was
There was the
interesting.
no pips, and then right after that there was the pips, but there was that you were punished for tricording. So like
Yeah.
you would push to tricord and it would give you less overall than just your forward mains. And then the third iteration they added ramp in to make it so you can't change directions really quickly. And then on top of that, they removed like the penalty for tricording. Like it's still not tricording, like it's not fast, but it will at least give you the same speed as your mains when you do like a bicord or a tricord, which I think feels a lot better
It
than the
does.
first iteration.
100%. Cobra, what do you have to add? Yeah.
I like how they've made it so that it's easier for people to get into combat and shoot someone else. But once you get nose to nose with another person, like the skill ceiling is extremely low right now. And I think if they can make it so that it's easy for someone who's not incredibly good at the game to get close to someone else and shoot at them when they're not being shot at. But then if you get into a 1v1 situation and they start shooting at each other, that gets to a point where if someone's really good at the game, the fight becomes incomprehensible. I think they'll have exactly what they're trying to get and what everybody wants. So then you have the ability to get extremely good in a 1v1, but then in a team fight, you can boil it all down to tactics. If they can get that right, then I think we'll be in a good position.
Yeah, and I second that. So, for me personally, master modes right now actually feels kind of fun in 1v1. I have less fun in the group space right now in the current master modes, just cuz well, we'll get into that afterwards. But moving on, what do you think are some of the problems that master modes has actually improved from the current flight model?
Who?
Let's go with Vection.
Well, as we all said by now, the bar of entry is much lower, right? But at the end of the day, it's more related to the game engine compared to anything else, because the game, I don't know if it can handle 1200 meter per second speeds. It's already way better when it comes to visibility, hitting your shots with the spread. Overall, the idea of going forward, I think, should not be penalized, but it should be encouraged to go forward. And it is way more fun compared to this flight model when I fought my mates, but it still devolves a bit into the circular fight, circular notion. Overall, I like it. I believe it's a step in the right direction, but they should be very careful to not chop the higher end too much, like they did with a few tweaks that they made. But overall, it's what it should have been. Maybe an iteration from the past models.
Schwang.
I have a lot of stuff that I like about it, honestly. like I like the cone fire, like where the farther your opponent is, the less damage happens. Like I really like that because sometimes people think that they're damaging you and they're not because they're just not close enough. And that's something that you can spend time mastering. Um, I actually do like the ramp in that limits the wiggliness. Think it was better than what it was before. They could tone it down a little bit maybe so we can actually change directions and it doesn't feel so slow. But I do like the ramp in. I mean, some of these opinions are going to be controversial, but I'm actually a fan of like the pitch up mechanic over 45s. I like it. I would like it if it was like pitch up and yaws were all fast. That way it's like you still have 4 options for turning. I think it's more intuitive and it's still something to master. Like I would really dislike it if they made it so all different directions are the same speed because then there's nothing to master. But so I do like the pitch centric play. Um, I like some of the stuff with the interplay between nav mode and missiles. Like if you can tell someone's about to go into nav mode, you can shoot a missile right away. You know, there's some things like that I really like. So yeah, this was just stuff we like, right?
Yeah. This was just stuff we like. 7. Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, I think you.
7 is muted.
You're
Yeah,
muted.
you're muted. 7.
am I muted?
Yeah, you're
There you
good
go.
now. Yeah.
Okay, good. I'm fixed. I like the targeting system per gun. That's nicer. I don't know if it contributes, but it feels like it helps make shots actually hit. The slower speeds, but I'm a little on the fence about the directional speeds. Maybe speeds are still too slow. I think they probably are. And I'm okay with the pitch aim. The way we aim doesn't really bother me as long as there is like okay, this way is going to be quicker, so you need to start focusing on using that more regularly, kind of like we did with 45s. Like, you got to learn to be on the 45 because pitch aiming or yaw aiming in live, it's slower. And anybody that you're fighting that is doing the 45s, you're going to be behind. So I think using mains more is awesome. I don't know if I said it, but I like the ramp in. Again, that might still be too aggressive. One thing I'm huge fan of is the simulation for keyboard and mouse input, because then it's not just an off and on for keyboard and mouse. It's some kind of ramp up to the full potential of the output versus just an instantaneous button press. It helps bring all the controllers and inputs into more of a line with each other so that there isn't really a competitive advantage for using one input over another.
And Cobra.
I think I'm with everybody else. I like the ramp in, but I do think it might be just a little bit too much. But one of the things I really like with the lower speeds in the nav mode is they've added the potential for a bunch of tactical gameplay that wasn't there before, because you couldn't really have a group of people in a big space fight and say, I'm going to go merge onto this person and get them, because it'd just be gone instantly. Where now you could use something like a mantis to separate a big fleet of people, and you can use your nav mode to drop in on the people that you've caught that were not caught in the mantis while they're trying to catch up to their friends, and just completely obliterate them. So the tactical aspects of MasterModes is way higher than what we have now.
So yeah, I agree with a lot of the points said here. I think one of the biggest proponents for master modes, or one of the people I speak to the most who actually really likes master modes, is G-Lock. And he brought up some valid points when we were discussing it, where the current master modes iteration in group play just changes more to tactical skill and communications. It's a whole different set of skills to like actually disengage now, from switching from SEM to nav mode to coming in and out. So it's a lot of different aspects. I do have my issues with we'll talk about that now, but I do like the pitch aim doesn't really bother me. I did read somewhere that they're adding 45s to equal pitch now. So
Yeah, you
that,
said it.
yeah, so that's pretty cool. I think that came from the racing community actually, because they had like an issue with just being pitch. But yeah, moving on. What are some of the things we absolutely hate about master modes? Yeah. Vekshan.
I for one hate the overall power play. For example, it's even though it's unbalanced. Why are we doing like 500 shots? Either make a decision to go full into the triangle system or put the system, for example, into a decision making with a single energy bar that's generated by our power plant rather than doing anything else. And this way, you can, if you go with the one power bar, you can just eliminate two keybinds and just decide when to shoot, decide when to recharge your shield with a, that's going to be the only key that you need on and off. That's going to be used by us, and then decides when you're going to boost, adding in heat and whatever. But this way, at least for the normal player, it will make the game way easier because you're not going to have a normal player having like 3 keybinds to spam them every second. Though there's like a skill gap to that as well. I for one like to have the game go into a decision making style rather than spamming buttons every like half a second because you need to time it right in the duel or the fight. That's why I think it needs to be changed, or at least needs to be figured out.
Schwang.
One thing I really don't like is just how tanky some of the ships are that they're testing. It's like you can get your full mag charged up to 110 in the Gladius right now, and then you can get right next to a Hornet and just unload, and you'll go through every single shot, and that thing won't blow up. And to me, if you're gonna give us a high pool, then I shouldn't have to recharge. And wait, especially since the recharge is so slow. The time to kill way too long on that one. I think it's sort of okay. I am at grandma's house, Heavy Bob. I am at grandma's house actually. I'm at my grandma's house. But yeah, no, yeah, it just takes way too long to kill things. I think that some of the problems with master modes mostly start to happen like in large team fights because players get focused and then you can't do anything to like win 2v1s very easily. Like basically what you would need to be able to do is like smart positioning and kill things quick. Like if you can kill things quick, then you can outplay people and you can move on to the next ship. But like if I'm fighting two Gladiuses, I can sort of like 2v1. But if I'm fighting two Hornets, it's like it just takes way too long to kill one. And then the Warden's even way more. Yeah, so that's one of the things I dislike the most is just how long it takes to kill the Hornet.
Cobra.
If I can,
Or go ahead, Beck.
if I can touch on that, I attempted multiple times to have no shield fights. Those feel much better from the earlier iterations because the current bugs also don't allow the shields to drop down if you go forward by a small amount. Right, so that may also be a factor in besides just the high HP pools. But without shields, it's just spot on.
Yeah. Cobra.
I don't like the power system either. It almost feels like there's no point to be pressing those buttons because of how little they do. Whenever I'm flying the Gladius in like a team fight or something, all I do is I fly around in nav mode until I see someone, and I drop into in third party their fight real quick and drop all my capacitors, and then I instantly leave the fight, which I don't think that's really necessarily engaging gameplay. So they either need to lower the time to kill on the ships or make it so the capacitors actually work. But I don't think that not lowering the time to kill would be the right option because you feel like your guns aren't doing anything when shooting. You could be shooting all day at a ship and it feels like you've not done anything.
7.
I would agree as far as time to kill goes, but I also think that has a lot to do with the shields. I notice we had I don't know how long some of you guys have been playing, but we had pre 314, so back 313 and before, we had faces on all light fighters, 4 faces, every shield, all shields were all faces on every ship. There was issues with shields then, where a face would get hit that shouldn't necessarily be getting hit. And obviously at that time the meta was still the full face front shields, or mostly front shields, at least in the PU or in a duel. And then we went to 314 where we got the bubble shields, and other than the times where shields were actually physically lagging behind the ship, they worked. They got hit and they went down when they should have. Now we're back to having faces again, and I think that the game itself is either struggling or there's just some weird issue with the way the shields are set that's causing them either, one, not to go down, or two, it's causing this bullet sponge effect. Because if you fight with no shields on, the ships die more or less respectably. I haven't tried with the bigger ships, but the Gladius at least dies respectably. But also caps, not a huge fan of the cap gameplay in this. The cap gameplay from the get-go felt terrible because it doesn't feel like it's doing anything. At least in live, there's a point to, positioning to get shields, to get guns, to get boost, to do something. Those decisions are meaningful in live to a better extent than they are here in master modes. It feels like they're stuck somewhere between, I want to have this kind of gameplay where it's a mini game more or less in a fight, to, do we just scrap the whole thing? Because it doesn't feel like they're committed to having it. And I'm still torn on whether I like the egg shape or not.
So for me, one thing that I really dislike, obviously the caps. I don't think there's any person who likes the caps, where you just keep power to weapons at all times basically. But something that I really dislike and hasn't been mentioned is how long the projectiles are last. Like I don't feel, especially with how easy it is to currently merge in master modes, that you should be getting tags 4K out, 5K out. Because and the way I see this, and is something I'll give like I already had an issue with this before, but A1 mentioned something, is imagine you're a Gladius or Hornet facing a Hammerhead, and you're just sitting 5K out, just pegging him. And they're never going to be able to hit you. The projectile life is just way too long right now. And maybe
And I would disagree. I would disagree.
You would disagree? Okay.
Because before 314, we did have these long projectile times. Maybe not necessarily at this weapon size, but we did have long projectile size, projectile lifetime. Now, that's where the cone comes into play, is because okay, sure, you might be able to tag someone from 4 or 5 kilometers out, but is it probable in an actual fight that you're actually going to be able to do that while somebody is moving? With repeaters, maybe. Cannons, on another hand, depending on how they do them, possibly. But we can only speculate on cannons because we don't really have them to play with in master modes. But having those longer distances is going to be good because of how big the game is. Now, stealth will also come into play later down the line, because as we've seen in live that they're messing with those numbers. Would the way we're seeing each other right now shouldn't necessarily be that I'm seeing a Gladius from 5 kilometers necessarily,
Right.
for a
If
gameplay perspective at least. So realistically,
if the,
I think that should tie more into larger ships, the longer projectile time.
So I hear what
Guns
you're
do-
saying. Or go ahead.
Sorry, the guns do so little damage. At least the light fighters, like at those ranges anyway. Like you might get a tag,
Mhm.
but nothing's really happening. It's just like, so it's to me, I kind of like it because people all the time will be shooting at me from super far away, and I know that they're just wasting their shots, mostly. And I think that's another thing to kind of master is how like what ranges you should be shooting at and stuff like that.
That's I mean that's a fair take. I guess my issue with it in the current iteration of Master Modes is just how difficult it can be to disengage. Is so this hypothetical example here. I ended up going nav mode. I got out and I'm like 4K out, and yes, maybe they are wasting their bullets trying to tag me, but I feel like that's just making it longer for me to get back into the fight because I'm still
I
getting
think
tagged. Yeah.
I think that when you go into nav mode, you're making a decision. You're making a
Right.
decision to take yourself out of the fight because like there's some interesting things about the way nav mode works. Number one, the missile thing, but number two, the fact that your boost does not charge very well. Like it when you drop out of nav mode, it charges way faster.
Right.
And it's still slow, still too slow, but like so when you click that button in nav mode, you're choosing to be basically out of the fight for a while. So it's in
Yeah.
a way it's a victory for whoever chased you away.
Yeah. So and I agree. You are making a decision to leave. But I think it's already so difficult. Like, because just because you hit nav mode in a fight, like you could still get taken out extremely quickly, especially like in high level. Like, there's real no way to really escape unless you're just in a faster ship, right? So yes, you're making the decision to leave, which could right now feels kind of like a coin toss whether you die or don't. So the fact that you did make it out, I feel like not that it should be rewarded, but like you shouldn't be getting tagged. In my opinion, still 4K out, but we're gonna have differing opinions here. I do
Yeah.
think it would be better if, like, depending on weapon size, the higher weapon size you go, the longer the projectiles last. So that's just my opinion on it. But what do you guys think about it, Cobra?
I think that the type of weapon should dictate how long it goes, and you shouldn't be hitting something with like a size 1 repeater from 5 kilometers for sure. What the actual numbers would be, I don't know. They'd ideally they'd be able to test this out quickly. Like for these 2 days, we'll have it be this distance, and then people can try it and play it, and then switch it instead of going like months and months with whatever we have, with them not changing it. Ideally, they'd be able to change all these values real quick and get like a bunch of feedback real
Yeah.
fast.
What do you think, Veksha?
Yeah, referring to the hammerhead thing that you said, right? And Cobra, that's what they have to do. Maybe they can make hammerhead have like 8 clicks, spray and pray with like a big cone of fire, suppressing an entire area of ships or whatever, and it's not gonna be an issue. And at the end of the day, the whole idea of the next master mode is to like not be able to get out without a big pay for it. You're either gonna be out for a fight for like 15 minutes, which is a reward for the enemy team, right? Uh, but otherwise, you're just gonna have the same feel where you're just gonna damage someone, he's gonna get out because you cannot damage him enough to make him go out or kill him. Ranges are good to be large enough.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I like the fact that we have differing opinions on that. Moving on from that, um, I kind of want to know how you guys feel, and this is something a question asked by actually one of my guys about missile speed still being 1300 while ships are capped out and the 250 or 200 or whatever they're going right now.
I think they already changed it. The missile speed is like slower than your max speed now.
Did they? I wasn't
Yeah,
too
they
sure.
already did.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of weird because you can just fly away, I think.
I
from the
actually maybe I did notice that because when I was in nav mode and I would disengage, the missile was chasing me the whole time, and I would just get out of nav mode and it would never hit me because I would just dodge it. So maybe
Yeah.
that's what I was seeing. Okay. So we'll move on from that. What are the hopes, and I'll speak for myself here, the hopes that we want Master Mode to really achieve. So ideally, in the best scenario for me, it would be to decrease the barrier to entry so that anybody could play the game, you know, obviously, and actually participate. Because right now, if you're new to the game or if you're just unpracticed and you've been playing the game for years, you can't participate, like especially in high level, like they're gonna be lost, right? So I think hypothetically, in the ideal scenario, we increase or decrease the barrier to entry, but we still keep some of the nuances, and maybe I pronounced that wrong, the nuances of the current flight model, um, because right now it just feels like it ends up being just a circle fight unless you vastly outskill the other opponent, in which you can get some positions. But right now it's just, you know, you joust, pitch, joust, pitch, joust, pitch generally. So we'll start with Cobra.
I'm hoping that they're able to get an atmosphere really highly positional fights out of it, and then in space, some sort of weird aim trading mess, and then in like moon somewhere in between. But I'm hoping that they're able to get a combat system that's good for big fights, for like fighting over those land claims and everything they're supposed to be putting in. But then it's also still good in Arena Commander, because right now what we have now would be fine for the land claim stuff, just because the fight will actually happen. But right now, in terms of like the Arena Commander, like the high skill stuff, it's I'm not gonna say it's dead, but like all of the like how would I say it? Like the anxiety in the fight is completely gone. Where current model we have, when you're in space, the anxiety comes from trying to merge onto someone who doesn't want to be merged on. Atmosphere, the anxiety is from for a weird reason, because your ship will just decide to go crazy. Um, but I'm hoping they're able to get that anxiety back into the fight model, without it being impossible for someone who is new to get in and contribute to the fight. Because right now they can't. They can't do anything. They'll just fly in and die, or not ever be able to get close to the fight because of the speeds are too high and they don't know how to control it.
Yeah, 7.
What was the question? Sorry,
You're good. So
I was distracted by chat.
no, you're good. What are the hopes that we have for in the most ideal scenario for master modes to accomplish? Like the ideal scenario for master modes for us or for you.
I mean, for it to be fun, like for it to feel rewarding. Right now, like there's not too much that I would say. Even if I spent more time with master modes, do I think that I would still think that it's rewarding enough? I think that there's too much that limits the ship compared to live, that makes it feel like you spend a few months with it, long enough to, you know, get your feet wet, and then you've already hit what could be considered a decent ceiling. And then you'd still be able to beat people who are brand new to the game, but give them a couple months and they could be right up there with you. Like, there's not enough nuance in the flight model, in my opinion, right now, that makes it worth grinding for. Would it be fun to jump on every now and then? Sure. Jump in, see what mode and AC is being cycled through, and then just not pick it up for a few more weeks. Like, that I would really like for the whole thing to just be fun. And if they could listen to some of the feedback that we give them, instead of it feels like just ignoring it, then we might be able to see where some of that fun is back in the game, and it's more desirable to play master modes than to play live. Because I mean, like, one thing I mentioned when I was talking to somebody the other day was like, why didn't we see some of these, like a master mode light added into live, where they capped our speeds and made us switch into a nav mode in live, but didn't touch anything else, just to see if it was worthwhile, a worthwhile endeavor. Because speeds are are a problem, a major problem. They're probably the largest contributing problem to most of the issues we see in live is just the uncapped speeds. So give us capped speeds, don't touch anything else, and see how we liked it. Like, it would have been cool to see something like that implemented so that we could give good feedback and see, okay, maybe these tweaks need to happen. And they build this master modes on the side, and then we're like, okay, we have enough feedback on how it feels and everything. We put it into this flight model. Let's see how you guys like it. Just that alone.
Yeah, just to add in here before I just lose the thought, I agree, and I was actually thinking about this without discussing with anybody. Like, it would be cool, if they made, like, a second PU, light, like you said, with these changes, or even, and if we can't get that for X reasons, even the different iterations or the different things they want to try with master modes actually in AC. So, they'll have like iteration 1, 2, or 3, or whatever it is. But I know it's a lot to ask. But, I feel like people would naturally migrate to what's more fun. So those were just options I was possibly thinking about. Vection.
Well, in their iterations to get to us for master modes has been extremely slow.
Yeah.
Like, we give feedback for months and we get another bit of feedback or another iteration, and then it doesn't feel like much has changed enough to make it the more desirable game mode. Like, I still feel myself gravitating more towards the live game mode than I do the master modes one after a certain amount of time.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason is because you just need, and at least for our level of experience, I feel just a few hours, at least in terms of a 1v1 aspect, which I'm sure the game's not going to try and be balanced around, but after a few hours, you kind of feel capped out of what you could do in master modes. But we'll let Vekshan go. Yeah.
With the master modes, for me, the goal is not in 1v1. I think the goal it's in group fights.
That's a good point. I forgot to mention that.
For example, when we have an objective like the platinum ticket, you had an end goal with the final of the battle, with the finale. There was no flight model problem. Everybody tried to cooperate and win that objective, right? So the only difference to me is that the fights are actually going to happen now, instead of having those elongated 1 to more than 4 hour fights where maybe someone dies if they slept too much on the on the recharge of the boost button, because that's the only mistake you can basically make, to not pay attention to your radar and just die because of that. That's my goal, is to have those cool big battles where you can maybe have a strike team that's a small number and you just win an objective, or just have those big numbers with like 50v50 and you have all the shit going on there. 1v1 is fun. I love 1v1s to a certain extent, but at the end of the day, I want to play the game with my mates and I want to ruin people's day with them.
Yeah, and to kind of cut in here and agree with you there, I think for some of us it's known that I've been obsessed with 1v1 for a long time, as since I started the game. But as I've gotten good at the game and just always learning and stuff, I've started leaning towards the group play as like this is the future of SC. So I agree with you. I do think it needs to be fun in group play. But the way it seems to be going right now, in my opinion, master modes is kind of like, it feels like light fighters, and of course we're not at the final iteration, are going to be useless moving forward at the moment, and that's. But we'll continue because I have a question on that. But let Schwang go. Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna just. There's a few things that I've been thinking about while you guys have been talking, so I might ramble a little bit here. But I think that like currently master mode sort of feels a little bit like Atmo fights. Like, basically once you start turning, you're like you're dead. Like someone will come behind you and shoot you. And so you have to be really smart about positioning and stuff like that. I think the problem gets like the bigger the fight is, the more it just snowballs immediately. Like, so if you have like a small like 3v3 type situation, coordinated, it's quite fun. It can be master modes can be pretty fun, but if you get a whole bunch more and there's like maybe everyone's pretty decent, then one player is gonna, like, the first person who dies, it just snowballs so quickly. Like no one can get away. It's really hard to do anything interesting with the fight beyond just the, the initial intro to the fight. I think that what Seven was saying about like just taking what we have in live and like putting some speed caps on it just to see how that would have been a good start. But since we don't have that, there's so many things that they changed that it's hard to, like, one thing that everyone wanted was the egg shaped flight model. I think there's inherently some problems with that. There's like no reverse G forces. Like, so if someone is trying to fly past you and you want to positionally fight them, they just joust past. They just get away now. Before, you could at least see it coming, and you could start reversing, and they could outposition themselves by flying right to give you a good position. And there's all sorts of things that could happen in the live model that are just can't really happen now because of the egg shape as well. I'm not against the egg shape. I just think that there's unintended consequences. Like if you're flying and you're trying to be in someone's slot and you're kind of aiming this way, you want to be perpendicular, right? Well, you can't, because you can't go up. You can't strafe up as fast. There's an egg-shaped barrier, so they just fly away, right? So there's all sorts of problems with it that were kind of unforeseen, in my opinion.
XLs might be too high. That's probably what is causing it, because we're
Yeah,
hitting
so
that wall too
the
fast.
XLs, yeah, we hit the speed caps like immediately, which but the interesting thing about that is that imagine they lower the acceleration to half, okay? Or even a fourth, right? Now, like right now it's already, if you just fly towards the station at 220 or 230, whatever the speed is, and you try and slow down by just hitting reverse or turning and up strafing a bit or whatever, it takes forever to stop. It feels bad. Like it feels like the ship is not responsive with the current accelerations, which are fast.
Mhm.
So it's just kind of, yeah, I don't know. Like I want the ships to feel responsive and feel good. Um, yeah, I just think I also think there needs to be more room for mistakes. Like we have this very low speed, and in this very low speed, everyone can merge. Everyone can, right? You
Mhm.
just fly up to somebody. It's impossible to fly past. I want to be able to watch someone's video and have them ask me like, "Hey, what I do wrong here?" And what happened was is he over throttled, like he overshot his, like just a little bit. Like
Mhm.
give us a little bit more speed, a little bit more something, just so mistakes can be made, right? That'll raise the skill cap, but not make it too hard. So, anyways, a lot of rambling there, but
Yeah, and I think for the regarding the speed issue, and not everybody feels this way, but I think a very large majority of the PvP community have mentioned, maybe not only increasing the speeds a bit, maybe to like 400 SCM, but reducing the difference between boosted and unboosted. I think it's a very extreme. I think it's like 100% right now between regular SEM and boosted. You go from like 250 to what, 550. I think that's or 500. That's pretty extreme, and makes it very reliant on boosts, which then goes into the caps issue. So yeah, I mean, there's things we could work on for sure.
mind if I say one other thing? I
Yeah,
think it feels really, really bad to boost up into the red, and then when you let go of boost, to have it like kind of slow you down and feel all weird.
yeah,
Like, especially in decoupled, if you're decoupled, you literally cannot maneuver. Like it just stops you maneuvering. You just keep floating in the same direction until you below SCM. That feels terrible. Like if you switch to coupled, you can
If
still maneuver a little bit. But yeah, the way the speed caps work is just awkward to me.
yeah.
if I can touch on that, is that I was thinking some time ago, rambling, is that maybe uncap turn rate, uncap rotations, and increase the Gs to like even higher, to like 35 Gs, but add a lot of overshooting to them. So the control is to like actually finding a very smooth aim to your own skill, and then you can just instantly rotate onto someone or do a 180 turn, do 35 Gs turn again, and just be like a Goku fight. That could possibly a way, but with 250 speeds, it's gonna be too low. So I wouldn't see it go over 600 either due to the game engine. But I was thinking like, okay, maybe just let me turn instantly, and I can develop the skill to just be knowledgeable when to instantly stop and turn again and just jump in your back with like very, very high Gs. Even a Gladius should have like 35 Gs because the game is not realistic. Why do we care about what can a G, where can a G kill a person or whatever? So just go try it out. I don't know.
Yeah, and this is where I go back to. I wish we had not these months of no iteration changes or updates. I wish we had multiple iterations we could test and be like, hey, this works or this doesn't feel like it's working, and going. But it gets complicated maybe. But
Well, and if they had a team that's working on it dedicated, then why are we not getting weekly updates?
yeah.
Like, you guys are asking for our feedback. You guys want our feedback. You get the feedback within the first 24, 48 hours. Most people at that point are either not playing it again until the next iteration, or some of them are jumping in late or just, struggle bussing it out. Like, why are we not getting more frequent updates? It would help build this flight model that is supposed to be stuck with Squadron 42, from my understanding from SitCon. Like, it is being shipped in Squadron 42. So if Squadron 42 is a shit flight model that's not fun to fly, is it really going to be that fun of a game? After so long of waiting for it and everybody funding this project, we want the product to be fun.
Yeah, and and Seven definitely, what Seven says echoes. I think with everybody, we want this product to be fun, and that's that. I'm a late, um, pledge person or whatever you want to call us. But there's people that have been waiting since the very beginning and are still behind on the project. So believe me, and us when we say it's fun. So moving on to the final question, just because I believe it's like 2 a.m. for Vekshan or something like that. Just to end the stream, BR. Why did they remove BR? I'm so upset about it.
I think it was just a push to get people to play master modes. Realistically, there was no reason to remove BR because it was probably one of the most played modes. And now basically Squadron Battle's the new BR.
But that's the new way. Not the way. That's a problem. When you are designing a game, you're just not gonna force the player to just go there because we, the skill player, for sure we enjoy to kill 600 eyes in squadron battles. Well, there is no ranking. The leaderboard doesn't work. The leaderboard is a single player statistical thing even in squadron battles, from what I remember. What's the point? There is no team play. There is no matchmaking. There is no MMR system. There is no rewards. What are we doing? Why am I there?
No.
Like, I can't even queue with my team to even schedule a fight. That will be fun. Like,
Oh yeah, you queue with a team and it splits up your group.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's
And
so
they
good.
removed duels, which they just added a leaderboard for. So like I don't, I don't really know what's going on.
I mean,
but
realistically,
it wasn't
duels
working.
Yeah.
was
True,
being
yeah.
used to 1v1 each other. Like, it really wasn't meant. It really wasn't being used for anything else. The leaderboards in this game right now are stupid. It adds a layer of BS and a talking point, I guess. Like, you see people talking about the leaderboard, but anybody who knows how it's structured doesn't care because it's a pointless system, at least in the current state that it is. I would love to have an MMR system where you could actually work your way up. Most of them go off of some dumb metric that CIG refused to let you know how it's done.
Schwang.
Well, I'll tell you this, like I've, for the past 3 years, I've pretty much only played BR. Like I'm the BR guy. I'm just in there. I didn't even realize there was other modes. People are like, "Hey, go into the PU with me," and I can't make my way off out of the station. I don't know where the elevator is. So for me, it's been very disorienting. Okay. But I think for sure they just wanted us in squadron battles and master modes. I've played a lot less since then.
I haven't played in a month. I haven't played in a month.
I've spent for whatever reason I've been really trying to figure out master modes lately. So I've been spending a couple hours in the squadron battle of master modes. And that's the only thing that so that's pretty much the only thing I have been doing. And yeah, I miss BR. I'll say that for sure. That's where I got my dopamine. Now it's gone.
Well, it's nice to be able to jump in and just have that instant action.
Just to interject before Cobra answers, because I know people love to talk about the fact that devs are in SM Discord and all of that, and I will go back and I do give them the benefit of the doubt that when SM was saying remove BR, it was in the past when the leaderboards were being cheesed and all that. So I really don't believe that any high level PvP org actually wants BR removed, because you could just hop in and relax. But go ahead, Cobra. Yeah.
It was a terrible idea that they removed BR. That was one of the main things I would play. It's a perfect spot to warm up for anything else you're gonna do. And it was probably the most functional module in the entire game once they removed the leaderboard, because you just get in and start playing. It was a terrible thing that they removed that.
Yeah, and duels. I enjoyed duels. That's how I actually trained the new guys. I just hop in there and let's go do, without being interrupted, without 30 people in the free flight lobby causing FPS drops.
It's
Yeah.
better frames.
If I
Yeah.
can touch on that, but you are not supposed to train in ranked systems. That's not
course.
allowed.
Oh no.
Yes.
No.
Okay. Vekshan is completely right, but we also don't have private lobbies, right? So we are supposed
and that
to
was
have-
my argument. Give us private lobbies and
Yeah.
we'll stop practicing in those ranked game modes.
Yeah. So
I mean,
go ahead.
it's kind of funny that anytime I'd be like, "Hey, let's do some fights." I could be like, "Just launch into duel." And they'd be like, "Do we need to party up first?" And I'd be like, "No, there's no one in the entire world playing." And so you can just get in and just play each other. And so I can kind of understand why they wouldn't care about the 10 people who care about,
Duel.
about these
Yeah.
duels or these different modes. Like even BR, there's what? There's a few hundred of us that play it regularly. A few, maybe more than that. But I can understand why they'd be like, "Yeah, we're just going to turn this off." But at the same time, I'm very sad. Yeah, very sad.
Yeah, and and maybe to Vekshan might smoke me here too, but we used to use squadron battles because it was dead before as group practice, and now we can't do
That's
that
what
because
we would do.
squadron battles is actually full. So
That's what a lot of groups would do.
Yeah.
You'd see some groups on different days practicing in squadron battle against each other. It's like
Yeah.
cool.
yeah,
That's what
right.
it's supposed to be there for, is to practice. But here we are.
So we'll go ahead and just before ending the stream, we'll answer two questions. If anybody wants to ask, let's see. I think Sil had a good question, but I believe Schwang responded. Anybody have any other questions?
I've seen Heavy Bob ask for questions.
Heavy Bob's just been talking nonstop.
Yeah, he's
Answer 4 questions. Let's see.
yeah, 2 questions is kind of
Okay, we'll answer 4 questions about MasterModes, not somebody's socks.
I showed him my sock.
All the questions are being directed towards 7.
Oh my god.
So what if they reduce pitch and yaw speeds by half in the current master modes mode? It'll just make that could be interesting actually. I mean, there's all sorts of things they could try if they would just iterate.
yaw is already 20 degrees slower than pitch.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
if they did that, then there would be some level of getting a good firing solution, potentially blowing past, or more positional fighting. But the problem with it though is that also it would just make the circle fights bigger. You'd just be farther away shooting at each other, because typically the size of the fight is only dictated by the turn rate of the ship. So
There's a good one. Here's a good question right here. It's why do you guys think speeds in the 400 to 500 meters per second range is going to solve the issues with the current flight model? I don't even think it's necessarily that it would solve the issues. It would help mitigate a lot of the issues. Because if you play at those speeds, you have enough to be able to get away, and it's not free. And hit reg and projectiles, they feel like they connect more rather than at the higher speeds. And again, speeds are a contributing factor, if not the main contributing factor to a lot of the issues we see in live.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody else has any other to add to
Yeah,
that.
Yeah,
but
no,
that's what I'm saying.
go ahead.
Yeah, I just think that like right now, reaction times necessary to chase someone at 230 or whatever is basically non-existent. Like the reason why chasing someone in live is so hard is because you have to tricord in the right direction, and you have to do it within, you have to do it extremely quickly, or you have to anticipate that they're about to leave and you have to go in that direction immediately. It's because the difference of acceleration to get to that max speed, if someone starts accelerating faster or earlier than you, then they're going to gain distance no matter what, basically. So if they just added some more speed, like we did some testing with the speed cap in live, and if you put the speed cap around 400, 500, then you can actually, for the most part, still juke and get away. Sometimes it's a lot harder than the live speeds, but it's just too easy at 230. No one's ever going to run away from any of us at that speed. Like no one ever gets away. You just, and yeah, it's just too easy.
Yeah, and to
Well,
add
and
on to,
I don't know how
go
many
ahead,
how many everybody else has played at those speeds just with each other. Those speeds feel fun. Like it's there's more thought that goes into those speeds than there is at max speed or even in the master modes. Master modes went too far the other direction, I think, for the most part. It overcorrected.
Yeah, and to add on, PAX actually we held group trainings at 450, I believe, or 500 SCM cap, and it felt great. Truly, it felt fun. People were dying much faster than the regular speeds. So that's why I think most of the orgs that are really into the flight model have tested at cap speeds. I know for sure Alo has. I know Schwang has. We have, and it just feels very fun, and it still gives that room for mistakes. Whereas Master Modes right now has, at the current speeds, there's no room for mistakes. Even when you get out of nav mode, you could be coming in full speed. You get out of nav mode and you're merged. Like it slows you down instantly. So yeah, Sil had another question. Do you guys think the difference, which we touched up on, but it wasn't really asked, the difference between non-boosted and boosted is too significant right now in Master Modes?
Maybe the speeds, if you're gonna go related to another what Elder said as well, from 450 to like 600 as a max, and you should not be able to stay at 600 out of boosting. But slowing down the speeds is an answer for the engine and the game itself. But I think that if you're gonna cut something, then you should increase the skills in some other places, and that's why just give us more Gs, but penalize people for overusing those Gs improperly.
Yeah.
It's just the game is not going to be fun if it's going to be turtle racing across the beaches or whatever, and let us jump at each other's necks properly.
Yeah, and I agree. So I do think so. I watched the Avenger 1 video, and he proposed something that I found interesting. I don't know how I feel about it completely, but it is interesting. Where if you're going reverse, right? If you're reversing and you try to hit boost, it'll actually push you forward. So you're able to boost. And he said increase the speeds and all that as well, but you're able to boost in all directions. But if you reach the speed cap, let's say it's 400 and you're going 400 decoupled and you turn and you try and reverse backwards, I don't know how they would implement this. It would actually push you forward if you boost. And I found that interesting personally. I don't know about you guys.
I mean, they'd have to remove the speed caps in the different direction, like because the idea would be that you like launch in a direction using your mains, then you turn around, stuff like that, right? Is that what you're?
Yeah.
doing?
So like as you're turned around, if you would try and boost backwards, I don't know how the game would detect that your ship's oriented that way as it is, but what A1 says, it would actually push you forward or not work at all. Yeah. If you're back strafing while boosting at cap,
Yeah,
basically.
it feels it'd be an interesting idea for live,
Mhm.
but
For live,
for
yeah.
master modes, it wouldn't make any sense because you're already capped at, I want to say it's 250 or 275 going in reverse. So if you're facing the other person, you have way more forward. So that's part of the issue is that you can't catch someone in a merge if they are trying to boost super hard into you at that point. So it's a moot point, I think, just because of the way Master Mode's egg shape is. Schwang's right. You'd have to remove the egg, or make it bigger, or something.
I think that they could like if they made this is just theory crafting, but if they could like allow you to just boost forward only, that would solve maybe the same problem. They could remove the egg shape like that. Actually, I guess they'd have to make it so you can up strafe boost as well because you need that to close distance a lot of the time. Anyways, I don't want to theory craft too much.
Okay, yeah. Definitely. So, I think that's good. It's really late for Vection. I want to thank you guys for coming in, Schwang, Cobra 7, and Vection. I know it was kind of short notice. I approached you guys like last week. It's just something that's been on my mind, and I appreciate you guys coming in. I'm happy that we got to do this. I like the conversations we had. So thank you guys for tuning in.
For sure.
All
My
right.
pleasure. It was fun.
Yep,
All
thank
right.
you.
That'll be the end of it. Good night, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. And yeah.